Okay, thank you for agreeing to be interviewed this evening. If you could, for the record, state your full name, your country of birth, and your date of birth as well.
My name is Asita Steele. I was born in Jamaica, and I came to this country when I was 16 years of age, and I arrived here in 1963.
Would you like to give us your date of birth?
My date of birth, 45.
Right, okay. So what was it like growing up in Jamaica for those first 16 years?
It was great. As children, growing up in Jamaica, we had fun. I'm from a family of 5. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I'm the 4th of the 5. And we grew up as a very close-knit family. We had extended family around, my grandparents, my mother's parents. My father's parents died while we were small. So we grew up with, as extended family, my mother's parents. And we were very close. We had aunties and cousins as well, who we lived in a close-knit community. And it was great fun growing up there. As children, we made our own entertainment. We were never bored. There's something that we didn't have in our vocabulary. I'm bored. That was never, ever in our vocabulary, because there was always things to do. And we always, find things and make our own entertainment, which has been great fun.
So what type of things? Because you hear a lot of kids saying today during the summer holidays, I'm bored. So what did you do?
Oh, we make our own games, the traditional games we played, and we made, as children, we make up our own games. We had situations where we go away and we'll go off in the garden, we'll climb trees, we'll play cricket, we'll play rounders, because we had rounders, volleyball, netball we played as well. And lot of I was into dolls. So I remember my brother and a cousin built me a very large doll's house, large enough that as a child I could walk in. And it was a proper house. Yeah. We had the bedroom, living room, and everything, and we had beds and chairs and tables. It was a proper house, but doll size, and we had fun as children. Great fun, playing with that. Yes, very nice. And also we liked running errands, for our parents and our grandparents.
You enjoyed that?
Oh, yes, definitely. Going to the shop, post office, because we had to the shops, we had to go about 3/4 of a mile from where we lived to the nearest shop, and about a 1.5 miles to the post office. And we used to take it as quite an adventure, going to the post office and the shops. It was great fun. Yeah.
Oh, that was good then. Tell me more about your parents. What were they like?
My parents, mom and dad, they're very, they're great parents, really. They're both Christians, so we grew up in a Christian atmosphere. And my mom, they were strong on discipline, but also strong on love. So, my mom was the greater of the disciplinarian. My dad, he would talk, but he wouldn't, my mom was more for, using, the term spare the rod and spoil the child. My mom was more for not sparing the rod, but my dad wasn't like that. But as children, we didn't have to be disciplined or punished physically, because we had this code that we grew up with, that our parents only had to look at us. There was this look, and we all knew that whenever we're stepping out of line,
Yeah.
there was this look.
The look. Yeah.
And if we take heed, to the look, that's it, and stop, that was it. That was the end of it. And but the look, it grew more, fierce, if we tried to ignore it. And so we didn't. We just grew up in that vein, that we were not punished, much as children, because of, as I said, the discipline of how we disciplined ourselves. I think we were quite stable children. My dad was away as a child. My dad was away quite a lot. First of all, he went to America when I was only small, on a scheme that they called farm work. Yeah. So he went. He was in America, and then he came back, and after a while he came to England. So for most of my childhood days, my dad was either in America or in England. So most of the the upbringing was with my mom.
How did you feel about that then, that your dad wasn't with you?
Well, it wasn't something that brought any, in terms of, discouragement as far as children are concerned, because as I said, we were a close knit family. My grandfather took the place of our dad, so he was the male figure when my dad was absent. And we lived very close to him, and so he was always there. So the father figure, was always there, although my dad, physically wasn't there. And the fact that, because we knew, it was explained to us the reason why he went away, it's for economic reason. He went away to make a better life for us. And we could see the benefits of that, because as children, I suppose in our, we were looked on as being well off, really, as in our family. And because of the fact that my dad was away and he was earning, and was able to give us more than other families had. So we were quite happy with that.
Which district were you growing up in now?
I was growing up in, it's a small family district. It's called Seafield. That's in Hanover. And we went to the nearby school, which is Pondside. As I said, about it's 3/4 of a mile away from where we lived.
What do you remember about school life then?
Oh, school days was great. It was great fun. I remember, even from going to what we called it private school then, but what it is, it's like nursery school here.
Okay.
And I went when I was I think I was quite young. I think maybe must about 3 or 4, because I was very active and I was eager to learn. And while my brothers and sisters were at school, I wanted to go to school as well. Yeah. And so my mom sent me to this, what we call private school. Yeah. And I was there for I think about 2 years before I actually started going to proper school. Couldn't wait to get to school. And I think because of that, I've always been, as they say, a bright child. And in the classes, I always excel in my class, so much so that they had this system where if you were bright, you were allowed to skip classes. So I didn't go in all of the classes. Because I was above, in terms of my academic ability, I was above, children in certain class, and so I would skip to the next. Yeah. So by the time I reach, our system there is up to what we call 6th book. By the time I was 11, I was in the highest class that I could be in the school.
Right.
And I started taking the local examinations. We have first, second, and third year Jamaica local exam, and I started that when I was 11 because they felt they had to give me something to do because you know I normally children at the age of 15 are in that class, and you know I was you know quite young, so they challenged me into you know studying as well at the same time. And even though we had a lot of interests at school, we were involved in a lot of extracurricular activities as well, not just academic things. The 4-H, which is it's a organization, a club for youths, and also another which was mainly girls. The 4-H is for both sex, boys and girls, but the other one, girls Gildry, it's called, in the sense of it's like Girl Guides, but it's Girls Gildry it's called, and I was involved in that from an early age, and also in the 4-H club. So we had lots of extra curricular activities as well.
So you're very active then?
I've always been, yes, I was from school. And I also remember my mother used to be involved with the women's guild, and I used to enjoy going to the sessions with her in the evenings, and you know they have various you know classes, craft and so forth, and a lot of the skills that I learned has been through going with my mum, and also from the 4-H and girls girlry. So it was a full, those few years were quite full, interesting.
Do you think England has a similar strategy for keeping young people's interests or developing other interests apart from academia?
I think that there is the possibilities there. But I don't think, you know, we home in on it, and oftentimes I don't think parents encourage the children so much, you know, to be involved in these activities. Because sometimes, you know, it needs maybe just a push, you know, to get, you know, if a child isn't interested of their own, maybe they just need a bit of, you know, encouragement. And you know, so they can see the benefits of you know such activities, because sometimes as children you don't see the you know the here and now. You know, it's all you see. You don't know the future, and you know things that that you can learn that will be beneficial. You know, in later life, we don't always you know see that as children.
Okay, so you came to England at 16. It's quite young, really.
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
Well, as I said earlier on, my dad came here to England in the 1950s. He was here for several years, and he took over my 2 elder brothers. And he decided he was staying for a while longer, and he wanted my mom to come and join him. But myself and my smaller sister was still at home. Eldest sister had by then, you know, she had taken her own part, you know, so she was able to. She was married, so that wasn't a problem. But my mom decided that she wouldn't come to England and leave the 2 girls out there, although we had our grandparents there who were quite happy to look after us. But Mom decided no, she wasn't going to leave us. And so my dad says, well, if you don't want to come without them, then bring the children. So we came over at the same time, my mom, myself, and my smaller sister. We came to join the family here.
Sorry, what year was that again?
1963.
1963. So that was your first sight of England in 1963.
1963,
then?
yes.
What did you think of the place then?
I remember coming home from the airport, and when I looked traveling along the road, and I saw these rows of houses and belching out with smoke. My first impression was, this must be a very rich place, because they've got all these factories, and all I could see, all the length of the the road coming up, was houses belching out. I thought, so that was my first impression, that yes, this is a very rich country. Because
where did you land?
I came to Heathrow. We flew to Heathrow, and my dad and my brothers and a cousin came to meet us. And it was March, and I think that particular year was a very bad winter. And when we arrived in Wolverhampton, you could see signs as you're coming along the way, but when we arrived in Wolverhampton, the snow was still piled high, but it was hard and impacted, and dirty. Grace, all you could see was this. And the sight of that, I wasn't very impressed with that at all. And for the first 2 weeks, it was as though I never saw daylight. And I was sad. I really wanted to go back home. Because of the time of the year and the weather, because it was bad. It was just dull. From morning, there was no sign that morning had taken place. Because it was still so dark. But I gradually, eventually, after a few weeks, things got better. And so I began to, settle down and, trying to get acclimatized. And the interesting thing is we were all, there's a fire, the fire that was in the living room. We had interesting times, sitting huddled by this fire initially when we came, because we couldn't get used to the cold, to start off with. So that was something that we had to grapple with. But it didn't take too long, really, before we got used to it. So
what was the housing situation like? What was your accommodation like?
My accommodation was fine, because my dad had his own house. Right. My dad was one of the what's the word I'm looking for? He very early, because of the problems that he encountered when he came here first in terms of accommodation, he thought as soon as it was possible, he would buy his own place. So what he did, he managed to buy a house, and then many of the folks who came up, they came to my dad's house, and after that, they find accommodation for themselves. So it was sort of a central focal point for a lot of folks coming from home. And so when we came, my dad had his own house, and so the accommodation was fine. It was quite an old, large old house, and lots of space.
So and this was in Wolverhampton?
This was in Wolverhampton.
Where was it?
Clark Road.
Clark Road. That's near Wolfram, isn't it?
That's right. Yes, it's the back of Wolfram.
Yeah. Okay.
And we spent many happy years there, growing up.
So what happened to you after you came to England? What did you do?
Well, I had the opportunity to either go into college full time to do my O-levels, or to go into nursing. Now, because I wasn't old enough, I couldn't go to do my training. Initially, I wanted to be a teacher, but my dad wanted me to be a nurse. And I felt, I wanted to please my dad. I loved my dad, and I wanted to please him. So I decided I'll go and do nursing.
Did you regret that decision?
Not really, no. And I had the opportunity of going to college to do my O-levels or to go into nursing. Now, bearing in mind that I wasn't old enough to do to start my training, but at that time they had a scheme called cadet nursing. So if you were interested in going into nursing, you could work as a cadet, so you'd get experience on the wards until you were old enough to go into training. Now, I applied to do my general nurse training, but because I wasn't old enough, I got in, I was accepted, but I had to wait until I was old enough. And in the meantime, I got a job as a cadet nurse. Yeah. And this was at Burton Road Hospital in Dudley. Now, the training that was done at Burton Road is enrolled nurses. They didn't do general training. And the tutor there, they're quite happy with me. I think I did well, and she just assumed that I was going to stay on to do my enrolled nurse training. And when she discovered that I was accepted to do general training, she was so cross, really upset. And I'd worked it out so that I would finish there in the end of September. I was due to start training at the Royal Hospital in Wolverhampton 1st of October. So I intended to finish Burton Road end of September and just start at the Royal. But when the tutor found out that I was going to do my general training, she just dismissed me there and then. Yeah, so beginning of September, I left Burton Road. I thought that was rather mean, but still.
Well, why was she so cross?
Because she assumed she wanted me to stop there to do enrolled nurse training. I think the backdrop of that is that in those early days, the majority of black girls were encouraged to do enrolled nurse training rather than general nursing. Now, in enrolled nursing, it's a 2-year course and more practical, orientated than general nursing, which is 3 years. Okay. So she just assumed that I would stay, to do my enrolled nurse training, and so she wasn't at all pleased.
How did you feel about that when she dismissed you?
Well, I was upset because I'd worked it out so that but at the end it gave me about 3.5 weeks where I'll get myself sorted out anyway to start my my nurse training. So in the end, I had it as a holiday before I started.
So did you have any problems with white nurses or any other students because you were black?
Problem working. There was no problem while we were working in terms of the nurses. I think you find with the sisters on the wards, sometimes as black nurses, you tend to get all the the dirtier and the worst jobs to do. But with the nurses, just working together was fine. That was no problem. But that was it. Outside of that, they didn't want to know. You could be best of pals on the wards when you're working, but on off duty, if you saw them on the street, they wouldn't speak to you, especially if they were with somebody else. They wouldn't speak. But when you're on duty, that's fine.
So did that happen to you?
Yeah.
So how did that make you feel then?
Well, at first I couldn't understand the reason, but eventually, later on, as you realize, because when you notice that is the pattern, it's not just peculiar to you. That's the pattern that it happens to a lot of black nurses, and so we just accept the fact. Okay, fine. Well, we play the same game, as it were, if it's a game. But we're happy working with you. But outside, if you don't see us outside, we don't see you either. And so we went on.
Okay. So were there many other black nurses with you at the time?
Wouldn't say many. In the school, in the training, I think there were about 6 of us in the training school.
Out of how many?
I think there was about, if I remember rightly, I think about 25. And there's about 6 of us who were black.
Did you tend to socialise together then?
We did a lot, and I think we used that as well. There was quite a good amount of camaraderie, with us, and we support and encouraged one another, because often, in a lot of cases, some of these girls, they didn't have their families here. And so they get quite sort of homesick and down at times, and so we use that to support and to boost each other. And something which I'm very pleased with my parents for, because there were a few black nurses who were here without their families. Come Christmas time, my dad used to say to me, invite whoever you want, to come and have, Christmas lunch, with us, or be there Christmas Day, not just lunch, to be there for Christmas. And so the ones who were at the hospital who didn't have families to go to, I used to invite them home. So Christmas used to be a fun time, with all everybody. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, and this was a pattern that continued for for several years, even.
Yeah. So what about your social life in England?
My social life. Very soon, I think it's about 2 years after I came over here, there was a young man who was interested, but I wasn't interested, because my first and foremost was my career. Yes, and I didn't want a relationship with anybody. My intention was I concentrate on getting my my training on the way and so forth. But he was very persistent, and he stayed around, and eventually I married him. But you have to give it, because of his persistence, really. He wouldn't, he made friends with my brothers. And so when I wouldn't take any notice of him, he would go out with my brothers, you see, and eventually, through my brothers, we got close. And that was fun. We got married in 1967, after qualified my first as a nurse, and we socialized quite a bit, and a lot of the times we went out mostly on our own. We used to go a lot to the cinema, and we used to love going to the park, and we go sightseeing, and so from an early age we were. And once he was able to to drive and had a car, we used to go a lot, travel a lot, enjoyed walking as well, so we used to do a lot of that. And also we used to go to parties in my party days. My family, we didn't do a lot as families, apart from within the home, socializing within the home. As the wider extended family, we didn't go a lot together. We just around the house, really. And what else did we do? I mentioned the cinemas. We did a lot, and concerts. Yes, we used to go. A lot of live concerts as well.
What kind of music was that then? You listened to?
Well, at that time, it was anything. One particular, because I remember we used to. We went to see Cliff Richard, Ray Charles, the Beatles in their early days, and whatever was going. I think we saw Roy Orbison and all those those guys. So we weren't. There wasn't any particular sort of music that we just enjoyed. Enjoyed music, having fun.
Okay. So do you remember any incidences of racism during the rest of your time in England that you can remember now?
Well, the incident I told about, as with the with the nurses and when they're off duty. Other incidents. Let me see. For myself personally, I can't say that I have had a lot of incidents, but they're the odd occasions. There's certain things. One thing that stands out that I can remember, after I did my nurse training, I worked for a couple of months or so, and then I went on to do my midwifery training. And the training involves what we call part 1 and 2. So it's in 2 parts. It's 12 months training. So you do 6 months at one place and 6 months somewhere else. So I went to Hallam Hospital in West Bromwich to do my part 1, and I applied to New Cross to do part 2 because certain hospitals only did part 1 and certain did part 2 at that time. And I can remember getting a letter back from the matron saying that I wasn't successful. Yeah, she couldn't offer me a place to do part 2, and I thought it was a bit strange. So I said to a friend of mine, "You apply and see whether you get in." That thought just came to me, and so she applied and she got in.
So this is a white friend.
No, this wasn't actually. This wasn't a white friend. This was another black girl. She applied, and she was accepted. Now, when I inquired why I wasn't accepted, the comments that the matron made was that because I did my training at in Wolverhampton, and well, it was New Cross and the Royal and New Cross. They weren't one. They were 2 separate hospitals at the time, but still worked closely. And her comments was that I just want to go around collecting certificates without giving my service, and that was the reason she turned it down. Because I hadn't, worked for any length of time at the Royal after I qualified, before I went off to do my, midwifery training. So, I think the fact that the other girl, she accepted the other girl, is neither here nor there. But she didn't know who the other girl was. She knew me, but she didn't know who the other girl was. And so whether it was specifically, racism, or the fact that it was just geared towards me. So I can't say that was directly. But the other thing that was noticeable as well in nursing is that a lot of when it came on to the black nurses, they had to work years and years after qualifying before they were promoted to sisters. Whereas with the white nurses, that wasn't the case. I've known white nurses who were promoted to sister after 3 months. There's 3 months, 6 months, whereas it was unheard of at the time of a black, in the times when I was trained, of a black nurse, being promoted. Usually years after. So that's an element of. I think that was an element of racism there.
So how do you feel that you progressed in your career then? Do you feel you were hindered, or do you feel that you went along as best as you could?
I don't feel that I was hindered so much. I think maybe because I changed stream. Once I got qualified as a general nurse, I went on to do midwifery. Yeah. And I stayed, having done my midwifery, I then applied to do, I saw a sister's post go in at the Women's Hospital, again in Wolverhampton, and I applied for it, but that was sort of nearly 2 years after I was qualified, and I was accepted. And
what year was that then?
69.
Right.
69.
Yeah.
Yes. 69. I just up a think then. And so I was appointed as a theatre sister, and I worked at the Women's. And unfortunately, I hurt my back while I was in theatre, and so I find that I couldn't deal with the long standing and so forth in theatre. So I went back into midwifery. Again, this same matron, again New Cross. Yeah. When I applied to go back into midwifery, although I was a sister, at the Women's, the same matron who didn't want me to do the training, I was not allowed to transfer from a sister from the Women's to a sister at New Cross. I had to go and work sometime as a staff midwife at New Cross before. By then the two had combined. Yeah. The Women's was moving over to had links with New Cross, so it could quite easily have taken place without a problem. Yeah. But she decided I must do some time as a staff midwife, which I did. I didn't like it, but I did it. And she said for 3 months I should do as a staff midwife for 3 months, and she'll review the situation after 3 months. 3 months, nothing happened. And so 4 months came, and I went to see her, and I said, well, I've done my 3 months, it's now 4 months, and nothing has happened. And in the end she says, all right, I'll see what I can do. So it's about 6 months actually. Yeah. It took me to get back to sister status, but I did, and I worked there for a while until I started a family. And then when I stopped and had my first child, after that I decided I wasn't going to go back. I wanted to go on to do something else, and so I went on to do health visiting training. Okay. And qualified as a health visitor and worked in the community for a number of years. Yeah. And then I decided I wanted a change of career, so I left off working in the health service. I went into education. And again, I worked for several years in education as a lecturer. I went to work in a college of further education, which has been good ever since. From the second year I got there, each year I was allowed to do something different. So I was always developing, courses and initiatives. In the end, I was, course coordinator on a range of courses and also team leader. And having done that for a while, I felt that because I was teaching health studies and I've been out of, hands-on for quite a while, I felt that I needed to get back into practice because I felt that some of my, there were so many new things that were coming on stream within the health service, and I felt that I was missing out on something, so I came back in the health service and came back as a health visitor, worked for 5 months, and after 5 months I was seconded into a management position, and then I went on to be project manager, again, developing initiative, training initiatives for the staff, which is where I am at the moment. So I feel that I can't say that I've been hindered really in terms of that, and I've looked for opportunities, grasped the opportunities when they present themselves, and just moved on that way.
All right. So how you see, from what you said, you seem to have progressed very well in your career, your choices in England as well.
Yeah.
But how do you feel when black people say that they cannot get anywhere when they apply for jobs, or they cannot advance in their careers because they are black? How do you feel about that?
Well, there is that element, but I think, as I just said, you have to look for opportunities and you have to work for it. Because, having said that, I have, while I've been working, I've also been educating myself academically. So I don't just have professional qualifications. I also have academic qualifications. So I did my a first degree and a master's degree, and so that made me more marketable. And so I use those as opportunities, to get on. But I know it is difficult in some instances, and as you said, you just have to to push yourself, and because I can remember when I started to do my first degree, I was a sister on the maternity at New Cross. And I can remember the comments of my colleagues. They thought that I was silly. What do I want to do a degree for? And while I was working, I did my degree with the Open University, and after that I went on to do a master's. I got a master's in education. When I went into education, I did a master's degree in education. And so at that time, while a lot of, not many nurses, during those times had degrees. And now it is compulsory, because nurse training now, it is a degree course. And those who went through training when it wasn't a degree, they are now being encouraged to go off and do, a degree. Well, I'm sitting back, I did my first degree 20 odd years ago. And while they were saying it's silly, so now I'm sitting back and, sort of, as you could say, reaping the rewards of it. Got my master's degree many years ago, about 11 years ago. And that was unheard of as well. Whereas now, again, nurses are being, those who have gone through the training at degree level, they're being encouraged to do their masters now. Well, that.
So this was a plan that you had in mind to do?
Yeah. Because I know that, to get on, you really, you have to push yourself really, and set yourself up in a way that you can be effective.
Right. So where do you think you got these values from? these aims?
Oh, my parents, of course.
Mm.
Yeah. And because my parents, this is something that they've instilled in us even from when we were children growing up, that we can achieve whatever we set ourselves to do. We can achieve it, and this is we came on that way, and so that was initially there from my parents. And then when I got married, my husband, as I say many times, he's one in a million. He was that way inclined as well, in terms of so he didn't say just stop at what you've got. He also encourages me to to go on, and a lot of things that I've achieved, it's with his support as well.
It's a good basis of that.
It is.
So what do you think your children have inherited from their parents? What set of values do they have?
Well, values that again we have the same as our parents have instilled this in us, that we must strive to be the best of whatever you do, to be the best of. We have instilled that in our children, and also respect for themselves, and also to realize that they can do but anything, whatever it is that they want to do, they can achieve it, but they must apply themselves to it. And so I think that they've also strength of character. They have developed as well, which we've instilled on them. And in terms of being realizing what they are, and we try to make them realize that their roots. So we talk to them about the culture, background, where they're from. At an early age, we took them to Jamaica to see life for themselves, what Jamaica is like. Because you find a lot of children have grown up in this country and they've never gone to their their parents' countries, so they have the perception that they have of the parents' background is what they hear from the white people. They haven't got first-hand knowledge of it themselves. And you find that even sometimes, or black parents don't talk to their children about their the background that they come from, so they don't have that first-hand understanding and knowledge of it. And we felt that was important for our children, so at an early age we took them to Jamaica. And my son even remarked on it. He was 3, that's the eldest one. He was 3 when he went there first, and he can remember things of people, places and things he did at 3. And he's been back since, and the young one, we took him there as well. I think he was a little bit older when we took him. And he's been back, and so they have got knowledge, first-hand knowledge of the background where they're from. And I think that helps them, because a comment that my son made, the youngest one, because last year he went over there for holidays for 6 weeks, and he eventually spent 5 months and came back. And a comment that he made was, while he was here in England, he didn't realize how much racism there was in terms of black people achieving into aspiring into certain jobs. And he was amazed when he went to Jamaica and he saw black people, the highest position that you can think of in any job. It was black people. And he said he was so, it did something for him. He was so chuffed because here you don't see that so much. I mean, it is getting a bit better now, but you don't see that on such a wide scale as as you do there. And it was really, and I think it's good for our children, to find that out as well.
So are you the two children?
I've got two boys. Yeah.
How old are they now?
Oh no, you asked me. First one was born in 1972, and the second one in 1978.
Still quite young, 28, 22.
Yeah, this year. Yeah. Yes.
So you feel that they learnt a lot as children, being educated by going to Jamaica?
Oh yes, I think that. Yeah. I think
you said before that you worked in the education side of the services. What did you see in that area regarding the education of children in schools, especially black children, regarding their black role models or the image of black people?
Yeah. My involvement, I can. There is. In education, I worked in further education, so my input there was 16 plus, not with not with young children, but even taking it from that basis, there isn't a lot of what is taught in schools. As I said, Black history, it's not something that is taught in schools, and so. And also, you don't have as many. The black role models are not there, so children get, as far as black is concerned, it's quite negative. Yeah, and so our children will get into the idea that they can't achieve certain things because they don't see black people achieving in those areas. And I think that's why it's very important from an early age for the education system bringing in, if it's an area that there isn't black teachers, that they would get in black people to come in and and be role models and actually do some work with with the children. I can remember, if I take it from my further education background, because I place students training for one course, student nurses. I go around to several schools because I have to vet the schools, before I put my students in. And when you ask about are there any black teachers, have you got black students and so forth, well, they said no, there isn't, because it's not a black area. And I think this is the idea that a lot of areas and teachers have, and heads have too, that because it's not a black area, they don't see the need for any black input in the curriculum, for the children. And I'm saying to them, well, they might not be in the school, but these children are in the environment, and they're in an environment where they're black people. They they go elsewhere. They might not be in the school, but they go elsewhere where there's black people. So they need to have an understanding of of black people and black issues. So it makes them more acceptable and more adaptable to black, when they come across black people. And gradually I found, I think from that I did quite a lot of work in actually getting black issues to be introduced, especially in the nursery schools, because that's where I had most most input, in nursery schools and the junior schools.
Do you feel that your children benefited from their own education within the schools in England, from the education system in England? as black children?
As black children. Yeah, yes. Because I think because the schools that they went to, we in the early stages we sent our children to private school, so they had private education to start off with, and there it was emphasized, yeah, their academic, and they had the academic ability, and so they were encouraged. Whereas oftentimes, you know, in the ordinary schools, you don't get that. So I think in the early initial stages, they benefited, you know, from the private education that they had. And also, we had in areas of maths, we had a private teacher who came in and worked with them at home on their maths. Because, you know, we feel that you know, those are important subjects really that need to be mastered, and yeah, I can say they're very good. You know, they have taken it on board. Yeah.
So which schools did they go to?
Ely House. It's a private school, and it's no longer a school. That's gone now.
Is that in Wolverhampton?
Yes, it's on Chetnall Road. And from there, St. Michael's and St. Peter's. The oldest one, I think, he went to St. Michael's, and after Ely House, he went to St. Michael's, because Ely House unfortunately only keep boys until 7. Girls, you know, stay a bit longer. And he went to Regis as opposed to St. Peter's, because his friends were going to Regis and he wanted to go there. But the younger one, he went on to St. Peter's.
Okay.
But something that was interesting, a conversation I had with the head teacher, and this was with the second one, when it came up to the exam that they have to do, you know, which determines whether they go to you know, one school, and for St. Peter's they have to take you know, this test. And the head teacher said something really interesting. He said to me, Mrs. Steele, you're very fortunate that your son's name cannot be identified as what he means.
Yeah.
It's not easily identified, meaning that he can't be identified as a black person. You know, because Steele, it can be, yeah, it's not a typical, you know, black person's name.
Why did he say that?
Reading into that is, I take that on board, that it means that there are some children that are disadvantaged in term, because they're black, that they don't, even if they you know, they reach the standard, they're not given the opportunity to go to certain schools, which was you know, was interesting, you know, to hear that. But outside of that, I don't feel that there has been any problems with them, really, with the boys in school.
So you've instilled a good set of values in them.
I think I have, yes. And
I bet you were brought up religious as well, you said.
yes.
I bet have they accepted your religious beliefs for themselves?
Oh yeah, they have, but they choose to do their own thing. As it stands, they believe. They're not actually practicing Christians at the moment, but they still have that belief. And it does, although it does steer them in the right direction, because although they're not going to church at the moment, they still have, the Christian values, because there's certain things that they will not do. Yeah. They're very careful about the places where they go. Yeah. There's certain, from my religious background, there's certain the eating foods that eat things that you don't eat. They still don't eat those. And as to restrictions in terms of the morality, and there are things that they will and they won't do, because they say that it doesn't it conflicts with what they've been brought up to believe.
And which denomination are you?
Seventh-day Adventist.
And that has been your religious belief since you were a child?
No, it wasn't. My parents were Baptist, and still are. But I became a Seventh-day Adventist. I've always, from a young age, I've always been interested in the Seventh-day Adventist faith. But as a child, I couldn't do anything about it, because my parents were Baptist, and I got baptized as a Baptist. But then after, my husband is Seventh-day Adventist, and although he sort of wasn't attending church on a regular basis when I met him first, but eventually, we made a decision that we would commit our lives to Christ again, and become actively involved with the church.
Sorry, go on.
I was saying I do have a lot of involvement with the church, and I develop various projects, the church day centers, out of school clubs. I do a lot of voluntary work within the community. This is it started off partly from my involvement with the church, and I work a lot with voluntary groups. I work with people, visiting in their homes, visit to prisons, visiting people in their own homes, and also we set up. I was concerned about our elderly people, who, especially where the church is concerned, as I said, there are certain things that, in terms of eating, that they don't eat, and also from the Christian point of view, in traditional homes, if they're taken into homes, these values are not not taken into consideration, and so they're given anything to eat. They're not allowed to observe the Sabbath and things like that.
Right. They're not eating specific kinds of foods. That's a health issue, is it?
Yeah, but yeah. And so what I looked at it to see whether there was something I could do, to bring about some change in that. And as part of the community work that I'm involved in, we developed a housing association, looking at providing sheltered housing with care for elderly black elders. It started off, although we say it's not specifically, because if someone who is not a black person come and is in need of housing, I mean, we would offer them accommodation. But it started out looking at that specific issue.
Yeah. And how's that going?
It's going quite well at the moment, and we're hoping to develop in every area, really, that we would have some accommodation going for our elders. Yeah.
Right, that's good. Okay. Well, you've been in Wolverhampton how long now? Since 1963.
Yes.
It's quite a long time.
It is a long
37
time.
years.
Yeah.
So you've probably seen a lot of changes here then.
Mm-hmm.
Type of changes have you seen?
Well, in terms of the physical changes, anyway, it's the Wolverhampton has grown in terms of what it offers. Yeah, there's seem to be much more on offer in Wolverhampton now than there has been in the past. We've seen in terms of the black people getting more involved, within the economy. In terms of, on a whole, they've always been involved in terms of work and so forth, but providing, getting their own, business and so forth. And also something else that has come on stream, which was unheard of in the early stages, is you'll find that there's more and more black people now being employed in positions where they can, they achieve and higher positions as well. You get things like in the banks in the early stages when you come here, it was unheard of, to see a black face, in the bank. But now you find that, you're finding, one or two people being black people being in the bank. In industry and commerce, there's more. To the point now that the chief exec of the council in Wolverhampton is a black person. You're having black councillors, mayors. Yeah, we've seen, we had, yeah. And so things are moving. It is slow, but I think we're moving sort of in the right direction. But we still have a long way to go yet. Although, yeah.
Right. So, as a place to live, how would you rate Wolverhampton? No, tell the truth.
Well, Wolverhampton, it's quite a nice place to live, really. I suppose if it wasn't, I wouldn't have been here for so many years, because I've been out and done training, and I still come back, and my roots are here. I think because of its location, you're here, and in a few minutes you can be out in the country, because it's it's sort of on the edge of green belt. And so for me, because we enjoy going out in the country and country life, I think for me that that has been a good thing for me. Whatever it is that you, as a black person, there's certain foods that we eat, and whatever it is that you want, you can get it to buy in Wolverhampton, as far as foods that Caribbean, from the Caribbean. So we've got a lot of shops that stock. Caribbean foods, and so you're never short. So being here, you don't necessarily have to long for foods from back home, because the foods are brought to you here. So although you're here, you're still having can still have a taste of home as well. So
was that the same thing when you first came here?
No, it wasn't. But as I said, gradually more and more, people are setting up their own business and bringing in things from the Caribbean.
All right. So finally, to wrap up, you've led a full and varied life in Wolverhampton. You've done a lot of things in the community, in the church, and with your children as well. So what are your hopes for the future?
My hopes for the future. Well, I still, I would like to see myself achieve, although I've done a lot and I feel that I've achieved a great deal, but I still think in terms of the hierarchy in management terms, I feel that I have not achieved that yet, and I still would like to see myself in a senior management position. So I aspire, to that in whatever field. It could be in, well, I work a lot in the community. It could be something to do with community. It could be to do with the health service that I'm working in now. And I have aspirations to do a doctorate. Whether I'll achieve that, I don't know, but that. And I'd love to see more of our black people in, achieve and aspire to do, more things, and or young black children, and also having achieved, that they will in turn do something in terms of putting something back into the community, so that all black children can can benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, I think that's a very good note to end on. Thank you very much, Mrs. Still, for giving this interview this evening. Okay.
Thank you.